Welcome back to the Euro Fantasy video and podcast. This will be ahead of Matchday 4 as we enter the knockout stages. All the group games are done, and now we have a clear picture of the matchups in the round of 16 and also the brackets. And one side definitely looks much tougher than the other, with the likes of France, Portugal, Germany, and Spain all hobbled together in the same bracket and the route to the final. So that'll be very interesting indeed. And I'll be discussing the best teams to cover and also how to have a good balance of your 50-man squad in terms of budget, but also to maybe cover as many games as possible to maximize your chances of making substitutions, changing the captaincy, and also getting player of the match awards, which have been very crucial in this fantasy format. Smash the like button and subscribe for new if you enjoy this content. Let's try to get this video to the 200 likes and let's keep on pushing towards 25,000 subscribers, which is our next big objective. We're getting ever closer towards that milestone and hopefully we'll reach it very soon. You can join the league code for the FPL Dylan League and it's JCRHjQ, everything in capital letters except the J, which is lowercase. There is an auto join link in the description below, and also check out my Patreon, the Championships Discord server, and much more, such as my Spotify. Leave a 5-star review, it goes a long way to support the channel. Without further ado, let's show you all the matchups for the round of 16. The three fixtures which haven't changed are Germany against Denmark, Italy versus Switzerland, and Austria against Turkey, and two of those matches take place on Saturday the 29th of June, and the first game of Matchday 4 will be Switzerland against Italy. Then it's Germany versus Denmark as the later game. Then on the Sunday, on the 30th of June, we have England facing Slovakia and Spain facing Georgia. On the 1st of July, we have France versus Belgium in the biggest matchup on paper, with two underperforming teams with so much talent and potential, especially in the attacking areas. And you've also got Portugal against Slovenia. And finally, on Tuesday, the 2nd of July, Romania versus the Netherlands and Austria against Turkey, which hasn't changed from yesterday's video and podcast. But you see the Netherlands, for example, finishing third and still facing Romania. But I have to say, some of these teams can't be underestimated, particularly Austria, who have been very impressive. They top the group with France and the Netherlands, so they can definitely not be scoffed at. And it wouldn't surprise me if they reach the semi-finals or even the final at this stage. But if we're looking at the right-hand side of the bracket, which is the so-called easier one on paper, I think England and the Netherlands would be the favourites to go all the way to the final, with England being number one despite some very poor performances in the group stages. But my top tip actually, or the underrated team, the one that people will still underestimate, would be Austria, which to be honest might be quite simple to do at this point. They always did quite impress me. For example, back in March, they beat Turkey 6-1 in a friendly, and they've always caused some of the best teams in the world several problems. But what they did in the group stages certainly surprised me, and I think they can beat Turkey, either the Netherlands or Romania, and even the likes of England or the holders Italy. You also look at Switzerland, they could go all the way to the semi-finals or beyond. They look like a strong, solid and organised unit, and it wouldn't surprise me if they beat Italy and England as well. But on the left-hand side, it's very difficult to predict, to be quite honest with you. You've got Spain, Germany, Denmark are quite decent, and even Portugal and France and Belgium. They're all stacked with talent, but I have to say the favourites here would be Spain and Germany to go through to the quarterfinals. You've also got Portugal and France, but then to kind of decide between those teams will be very tough, particularly Spain or Germany. That could be the winner of Euro 2024 right there. Two of the countries with the most Euros titles with 3, and they could easily make it 4 this summer. In terms of Euro fantasy assets, I think Spain will be one of the standout teams. Now, I'll be completely honest with you, I don't think they have great midfielders or forwards per se in Euro fantasy terms, someone who gets goals and assists consistently. I know Yamal is a top talent, he will eventually become that player, but at the moment I think they share the goals between them, and they're not a free-flowing team when it comes to just scoring at will. They control games, they play some great stuff, but in terms of scoring and being clinical, I don't really see Spain as that team. But to be honest, you would have said that about France in the years gone by, and look at them right now. Things change very quickly in the tournament, and it's about performing in the knockout stages, getting to that stage in the first place, and then delivering when it matters most. So I think 3 or 4 Spain players for the round of 16 really works out. But remember, they would likely face Germany, and even Denmark will be quite tough in the quarterfinals. Then you've got a Portugal or France most likely waiting for you in the semi-finals. And that's why having the wild card in your back pocket can be a blessing. And it's literally that safety policy and insurance policy where you can go for players. For example, in the round of 16, you go for 3 or 4 from Spain, and then in the quarterfinals, you can maybe adjust that and have a bigger balance, or perhaps save the wild card for match day 6 in the semi-finals, and that's where you can start to readjust depending on how many players you have eliminated from your 50-man squad. I'd still go for 2 German players, possibly 3, but Denmark are no mugs. They reached the semi-finals last time out. They're a solid team with some quality players, particularly in the midfield. So I think that's going to be a very tough game, and it could come down to very fine margins. Then you've got Portugal versus Slovenia, who are unbeaten in this Euros tournament, and they beat Portugal 2-0 back in March. But Portugal are still the heavy favourites for this game. They'll obviously go strong this time round. They didn't a couple of months ago. And I think going for 2, 3, possibly 4 from Portugal is a great option for the round of 16, but not so much for the quarterfinals. It goes without saying that Belgium have so many top quality players, but Kevin De Bruyne is the only one I'd really consider. Maybe Wout Fast because he's 4 million and can get ball recoveries, but I would expect France to score at least a goal, possibly even 2, and I think Belgium will be knocked out here. But look, it's very difficult to get all these predictions right. There will be upsets, and if Belgium were to go through and find their groove, it wouldn't be the most surprising thing in the world, let's put it that way. But I think France versus Portugal is everyone's kind of predicted quarterfinals at this stage, and that will be a repeat of the Euro 2016 final we saw 8 years ago. So from France, I think Mbappe is the clear standout. I still like Koundé or Saliba for ball recoveries, but I think I'd rather go for Koundé because he's 0.5 million cheaper, and a France clean sheet isn't set in stone. They've only conceded once in this tournament, which was a penalty converted by Robert Lewandowski in Matchday 3, much to the dismay of those that played the limitless and doubled up on France defensively like I did. But I still think going for 2 France players could be the play, and possibly De Bruyne, who is easily capable of man of the match awards, as he has shown in this tournament already in match days 2 and 3. Then you look at the other side of the bracket. I think going for 2 or 3 from the Netherlands is definitely a solid strategy, but Romania are still a very tough cookie to crack. They're solid defensively, and this could come down to very fine margins indeed. But Cody Gakpo is certainly one that intrigues me. I still like Xavi Simons despite a poor record for the national team in terms of goals and assists, and you've also got quality defenders who can get ball recoveries and assists like Nathan Ake, and of course you've got Virgil van Dijk, who might not have the attacking potential of Nathan Ake, but he certainly recovers the ball very well. In terms of Austria, I have to say they're my favourites to go through here. I know Turkey have some quality players like Kalanoglu and Arda Güler, but Sabitzer, Baumgartner if he starts, those two really appeal to me. And even Arnautovic could be a decent budget forward, but I have to say the midfielders from Austria are the ones to certainly target. Then for England, I know everyone's saying the only player to go for is Mark Gay. Fair enough, he's definitely the best in terms of value, and he's always going to get you points no matter what. But I still think Harry Kane at 11 million can kick on in this tournament. Look at the last Euros, for example, 3 years ago. He had a very slow start, scored 0 goals in the group stages, and then went ballistic in the round of 16 and the quarterfinals. And I think something similar could happen here, particularly against Slovakia and one of Switzerland or Italy. To be fair, those two teams will be quite tough on paper in the quarterfinals, but England would be the heavy favourites to progress. And of course, if they can get that clicking and start building some attacks and finding some joy in the attacking areas, I think England can go all the way. It's just a matter of finding their groove when it matters most in this tournament. And finally, from Switzerland or Italy, they don't have many great Euro fantasy options, but the standouts for me are Akanji. I think JCRHjQ is decent because of Man of the Match awards. He has gotten so many over the years at Euro tournaments. And from Italy, Bastoni for ball recoveries and potentially a Barella. Something like that could work. Chiesa as a cheaper forward. But honestly, from this game, I'd probably say Akanji is my favourite in terms of budget, and also the ball recoveries he gets consistently is very impressive. He showed it at Man City in UCL Fantasy, so that would be my standout pick from Switzerland versus Italy. As always, I want to see your thoughts down in the comment section below, and let's continue the conversation going into the deadline streams coming up, and also the Discord server, which is a great community to be a part of. But what I'm going to do now is build my latest draft from the ground up, starting with the goalkeepers, then going to defenders, midfielders and forwards. We have a 105 million budget. Remember that the price changes haven't happened yet. I'm not sure what's going on there because, for example, this is obviously by UEFA, this game, and in UCL Fantasy, they made it very clear in the rules when the prices will start to change, which I believe was around match day 2 or 3. And once that deadline passed, you saw immediate price falls and rises. We haven't seen it yet with this fantasy format, and my gut feeling feeling is that after the knockouts begin, that's when you will see some price changes start to happen. So that was very confusing in the rules section. Everything else has been kind of flowing quite nicely. No real issues like we saw in the World Cup fantasy game. But let's go with the goalkeepers now. 105 million budget. If you have the Limitless and Wildcard, I've always been asked this question, even to this point. I'd use the Limitless in Matchday 5 and the Wildcard in Matchday 6. If you've only got one of those chips remaining, Matchday 5 is probably the best time to use it. But if not, and you're happy with your team, you can always use it in Matchday 6. I don't think it's a big deal there. It's ultimately team dependent, and go for your own strategy and you can win your Euro Fantasy Mini Leagues. No matter what you say about England, there's no denying that defensively, they're a solid unit. They keep clean sheets in these Euros and World Cup tournaments, and Jordan Pickford has a great record for the national team. So for me, he remains one of the best goalkeepers in this fantasy format, and facing Slovakia, that is a great chance of a clean sheet. Going forwards, there might be some tougher games than you'd expect. Switzerland or Italy in the quarterfinals wouldn't be easy. Of course, it's definitely easy on paper compared to the other side of the bracket. And then you've got an Austria or Netherlands potentially waiting for you in the semi-finals. All of them have some top quality attacking talent, but England can nullify them with their defensive line and Jordan Pickford in goal, who always performs for England. Now, my second goalkeeper might be a bit controversial. I've been talking about him since the beginning of this tournament, and he had a great start. But after what we saw in Matchday 3, there will be some big doubts about this one. But I'm going to go for Verbruggen facing Romania. I think that's a great chance of a clean sheet. And also, I've got the wild card in my back pocket as an insurance policy. So if things go south and the Netherlands are eliminated, or they look so poor defensively, still go through to the quarterfinals, and I've got so many fires to put out, I can play the wild card in Matchday 5. And if not, in Matchday 6, as discussed earlier. But in terms of value, Pickford and Verbruggen are two of the very best in this game. I still like Maignan, Diogo Costa, and Unai Simon is looking like the best one on paper. But remember with Spain, and those of you that maybe want to go for 3 or 4 Spanish players and have no wildcard or limitless, they will likely face Germany in the quarterfinals should they go through. And then it's France or Portugal in the semi-finals, their most likely opponents. So it's not that easy. That's why I keep on stressing the wildcard is so important at this stage of the competition with the way the group stages have gone. But Verbruggen and Pickford are two of the best goalkeepers in the game. Spain are the only team in this Euros tournament to have not conceded a goal and to also have won every single group stage game up until this point with 9 points out of 9, and they've been very impressive in all of their matches. My only issue with them is the lack of that cutting edge to really bury games, and that's a problem they've had for many years now, since their golden generation between 2008 to 2012. But Carvajal is one of the best right backs in Europe, arguably the best right now. He's got attacking potential. He's scored in Matchday 1 against Croatia, and he can get ball recoveries as well. But in terms of value, you could argue that Cucurella at 4.5 million with ball recovery potential is even better, and he was in my first draft. So I think it's between those two for a spot in my final 15-man squad, which I'll show you in the team selection and deadline stream as well. That will be the plan. But you could even go for both. I wouldn't be against that instead of going for Unai Simon in goal. But I'm not going for a Spanish defensive double up in this draft, which I think a lot of you might be perplexed by. But remember, with Spain, they will likely face Germany in the quarterfinals and potentially a France or Portugal in the semi-finals anyway. Not too much of an issue for me because I've got the wild card in my back pocket, but it's worth mentioning for those who have used both chips already in the group stages. Moving on to the other defenders though, I don't think anyone will have any complaints about this one, despite the first defensive double up of this video and podcast, and that's Mark Gay, who was so good for ball recoveries. I think he's having a great tournament. There have been a few shaky moments where he's given the ball away, but he immediately recovers it, and I think he's been a bit of a scapegoat by some English outlets. I'm not sure exactly what they're smoking there, but Mark Gay has been one of the standout English players in Euro 2024, and in terms of goal threat or assists, he's not really going to get that. If he were to get any attacking contributions, pop a bottle of champagne or something, just celebrate. But it's going to be ball recoveries and clean sheets he's going to deliver, and England can reach the final despite playing very poorly as they have done in the last 3 matches. The third defender starts the second defensive double up of this 50-man squad, and I'm going to go for a ball recovery machine, a 41-year-old who is still performing at the highest level in Pepe, who costs only 5 million, and his replacement in Antonio Silva had a disaster class against Georgia. He gave the ball away for the first goal, which Kvaratskhelia converted, and he gave away the penalty, which Mikalce, the top scorer of Euro 2024, also dispatched. So there's no chance that Antonio Silva will get into that starting 11. It will be Pepe and Ruben Dias if Portugal play a back four, and Pepe offers the best value of any Portuguese defender. You've also got Diogo Costa in goal, to be fair, but Pepe has those ball recoveries over Diogo Costa, of course, and that's what probably makes him one of the best Portuguese assets alongside Bruno Fernandes. But I am going to go for another Portuguese defender who is quite template. He's very expensive. He's got attacking potential and ball recoveries, and that's going to be João Cancelo, who was in so many of my drafts going into Matchday 1. I think he's been quite decent, but there is still more to come from Cancelo, in my opinion, and we could see some attacking returns in the round of 16 against Slovenia, and I think Portugal will get revenge, so to speak, from that defeat back in March, so I'm not too concerned about that whatsoever. But my fifth and final defender is a budget defender at 4 million. As soon as I saw they will be the starting left back for Germany, I had no doubts about him as a Euro fantasy asset, and of course that is Mittelstadt, who has delivered 15 points up until this stage of the competition. There is a slight chance that David Raum can displace him eventually. It wouldn't surprise me, but as things stand, I think Mittelstadt will retain his spot, and the most likely change to that Germany starting 11 will be Füllkrug in for Kai Havertz. Despite not featuring in Matchday 3, Fabian Ruiz remains one of the highest scoring midfielders in Euro Fantasy after a mega haul against Croatia with that goal and assist. He can get ball recoveries, he plays in a slightly deeper position, but it'll be Rodri sitting at the base of that midfield and also transitioning Spain from defence to attack. And I think Fabian Ruiz can be an underrated option in the round of 16, but there's no denying that Yamal and Nico Williams will be the two exciting wingers to go for the Spanish national team, with Yamal classified as a forward in Euro Fantasy, and I'm not against that pick or the next one in Nico Williams, but in my opinion, he's a great dribbler, a fantastic player to watch, but not the most consistent in terms of goals or assists. He doesn't have any in this tournament so far. Maybe this fixture against Georgia is where he provides his first Euros goal or even assist, which would be great to see, of course. Now, these two picks aren't locked in, I have to say that, in terms of Nico Williams and Fabian Ruiz. Things can certainly change, and in terms of 6.5 to 7 million midfielders like Çalhanoğlu and also Rodri potentially, you've also got Sabitzer. They might be more reliable, especially Sabitzer and Çalhanoğlu, in terms of goal contribution. So watch this space. They aren't locked in, but going for 3 or 4 Spanish players is a great play for the round of 16. My next midfielder, I'm not entirely sure about, because for me, the best 9.5 million midfielder in the game is Kevin De Bruyne, but he's facing France. So I'm going to go for Jude Bellingham against Slovakia in the hopes that England can finally click and start scoring some goals, a bit similar to what they did in the World Cup, where they had a slow start, they had a 0-0 draw against the USA, but in the round of 16, they actually seemed very competent going forwards, and they put a few past Senegal, and the likes of Bellingham were very impressive in that game, for example. So an English attacking double-up could work in the round of 16, but I say that very loosely because what they've shown so far isn't impressive whatsoever, with only 2 goals across 3 group stage games, and it's no wonder that Group C was the lowest scoring group in Euros history. But the fourth midfielder is another expensive option who is certainly worth the money, and that's Bruno Fernandes at 9 million, facing Slovenia, and he was impressive in Matchday 2. He scored that tap-in, of course, but he creates chance after chance for Portugal and for Manchester United over the years, and he has a great record for the national team, and I'm backing Portugal to still go very far in this competition. And despite their loss in Matchday 3, I still think they've been a bit more assured and also clinical in front of goal compared to France, who could be the quarterfinal opponent. But looking specifically at the round of 16, it's a great fixture against Slovenia, and going for 3 Portugal players I think seems quite decent. You can go for 4 if you wish, but 2 or 3 is probably the sweet spot, because Slovenia are unbeaten in this competition and they're very tough to beat, as England found out in Matchday 3. But the final midfielder is one of the best talents in the world, a fantastic dribbler, arguably the best right now, and that's Musiala against Denmark. Not an easy game by any stretch of the imagination, but I would always recommend having options on each day. So if you don't go for a German player against Denmark, maybe go for a Danish player or go for someone from Switzerland or Italy. You want to maximize your chances of getting points and having captaincy options on each day. So if you don't go for Musiala, you do have Gundogan as well, and I don't mind that midfield double up still, but Denmark isn't the easiest of games. Then it will likely be Spain in the quarterfinals, as I've mentioned a few times here already. But I like this midfield balance. You got that attacking double up with Fabian Ruiz and Nico Williams. You got Bellingham, Bruno Fernandes and Musiala, so attacking contributions are likely. And also the fixtures, which is the most important thing in my opinion, they look very appealing for some of the best players in the world. Speaking of which, I'm going for Kylian Mbappe, who has a tough fixture on paper against Belgium, but he scored from the penalty spot against Poland, and he also forced that own goal in Matchday 1 against Austria, as France finished second in that group to the surprise of many. They haven't got going in this tournament so far, with no goals from open play up until this point. Even England managed that, for Christ's sake. But Kylian Mbappe is still a fantastic option. I think he could definitely go another level in the round of 16 and also push France all the way to the final. If he can match those World Cup performances, then I wouldn't have too many concerns about France going forwards. And also Mbappe as a captaincy option is always dependable and reliable. 2 returns out of 2 matches. He missed Matchday 2 due to injury against the Netherlands with that broken nose, but he is back now with the mask, scoring a goal. Let's see if he can build upon that and break this Euros curse that he seems to have. But of course, it's very early on in his career. I'd still expect him to score many goals in this competition in the future. But the second forward is the joint most expensive player in the game. A lot of people doubt this pick, but I'm not really having that same problem. I still believe he can deliver, and that's Harry Kane facing Slovakia, and a pretty good route to the final should England turn up and put the screws on like they did in the World Cup and also in the last Euros tournament. If you look at those trends, I think England can do something similar here and start to build when it matters most. But the final forward only costs 7.5 million, which means I've got 0.5 million left in the bank after making this final player. And that's going to be Cody Gakpo facing Romania. And I know the Netherlands have been quite shaky, but one player that's really stood out to me is Cody Gakpo, with a great performance against Poland, particularly in the first half in Matchday 1, and also scoring in Matchday 3 against Austria in that 3-2 loss. I think he's one of the standout 7.5 million forwards in the game. I didn't mention him in the best forwards video and podcast a couple of weeks back, a slight regret of mine because he was quite close to making it, and I did put Depay instead, who hasn't had a great tournament despite scoring in Matchday 3 as well. But Gakpo is the best Dutch attacker to go for. I'd probably say Xavi Simons is second, but Cody Gakpo for me is a reliable starter. He's also a different beast on the left wing, as Liverpool found out in recent months as well. I think he's far more assured in that position compared to as a false 9 or as a striker, which he can still do well from time to time, but left wing is certainly his best position. So that's the 15-man squad. You've got a nice balance there with attacking double-ups for England and Spain. I know the word England and attacking double-up might just put some of you off, but I still think it can work in the round of 16. Maybe not so much in the future rounds, but with the wildcard in play or the wildcard in the back pocket, I don't think it's a big issue at the moment, and that's why I'm taking some risks with this draft. You also look at the defensive double-ups with England and Portugal, and some nice balance with other teams covered like Spain, Netherlands, Germany. So I really think this could work out and deliver in the round of 16 at least, but it's a question of also having this team stick for the rest of the competition, which I think it can do. But of course, if you don't have the wildcard or limitless at this stage of the competition, it won't be the easiest to navigate with the way the groups have gone. I don't think the limitless is as strong now as it would have been in the group stages anyways, but Matchday 3 was quite disappointing with that chip. We all know that. I scored 60 points. I'll be talking about that in the team selection. But let's now talk about the starting 11, order the bench with the dates in mind, and talk about the captaincy, which is always so important in Euro Fantasy. When you're building your Matchday 4 squad using unlimited transfers, make sure your 2 goalkeepers play on different days, because you want to have that opportunity to make substitutions and take off your first goalkeeper for the second who hasn't played yet, just in case that first option doesn't keep the clean sheet. So I've gone for Pickford in goal, playing on the 30th of June, and I've gone for Carvajal, Mark Gay and Mittelstadt, who all play in June. Then I've got Bruno Fernandes, who plays on the 1st of July, Nico Williams, Fabian Ruiz, Bellingham and Musiala, with Kane and Mbappe up front. And my bench is full of players on the 1st or 2nd of July in Verbruggen, Cancelo, Pepe and Cody Gakpo. So the way I'm going to structure my captaincy is Musiala on the first day, the 29th of June. Then on the 30th, I will likely go for Harry Kane, but that isn't set in stone. And with Spain facing Georgia, I would be tempted by a Carvajal or maybe a Nico Williams. And if you do have Yamal, I wouldn't mind captaining him or Morata in that fixture against Georgia. Then on the 1st of July, that's a bit more difficult because I still think Mbappe can go ballistic here, but I would likely go for Bruno Fernandes out of my options. And on the 2nd of July, Cody Gakpo looks like the best option on paper, but hopefully it doesn't come to it and I can get a big return from my captain way in advance so I can just focus on substitutions and enjoying the football. But that is pretty much it in terms of my 15-man squad with my latest draft. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below, and also let's continue the conversation in future deadline streams, the Discord server, and much more. Thank you very much for watching this video and listening to this podcast. If you enjoyed it or found it useful, then be sure to smash the like button and subscribe if you're new. Let's get this video to the 200 likes and let's keep on pushing towards 25,000 subscribers and beyond. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and check all the other links in the description below for my Patreon, the Championships Discord server, Euro Fantasy League, Draft Town, and Spotify. As I mentioned earlier, as a patron or channel member, you can get early access to my videos days in advance and sometimes up to a week, depending on the context. Thank you very much for watching and supporting the channel. We are getting very close to some new milestones and reaching new goals in the future, and all your support is massively appreciated. I'll see you very soon for Matchday 4 and also the knockout stages of Euro 2024. And I wish you all the best of luck in Euro Fantasy.